of time, Theodora, please.
Yeah, I'll do my best to
Please, I know.
keep it 5 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to refer briefly to risk allocation and force majeure or equivalent provision of different systems. So obviously we all know that uncertainty and risk are inherent in such projects, and the more complex the project is, the more risk you undertake. Ideally, you will have risk allocation already introduced in the contract, because different systems have different rules in terms of risk allocation, but they're abstract, and there's lots of uncertainty. So introducing specific rules, first on issues of who bears the risk, description of the risk, who bears the risk, process issues when you notify that the risk has emerged, and also the available remedies simplifies things and provides an element of certainty. I won't get into examples of risks, which are, common risks that you can actually expect, known knowns or whatever, but you do have events which are completely outside the control of either of the parties, but are likely to materialize during the term of the agreement. Again, most legal systems have notions addressing this, such as force majeure, frustration, impracticability, and you have different remedies available. So the more the extreme the event and its impact on the contract, usually you have some sort of impossibility of performance, which will lead to mutual release from obligations and usually a recovery of the funds already paid, which is not always the optimal solution. So one thing I would like to stress is sometimes we focus too much on the event itself, the frustrating event or the force majeure event or whatever you call it, but we have to focus more on what its impact is on the specific contract and what each of the parties can properly do to foresee and manage the risk. So first, you have to, ideally you will have allocated the risk beforehand to the party which is best suited to address it and manage it, actually, and avoid deal breakers or the end of the contract. So if you have provisions which allow the contract to carry on, even modified in a way, that's probably optimal. Otherwise, it's endgame. I won't really get into the Greek law issue or definitions and so on. The only thing I want to mention is hardship clauses, which are also common, and they mostly refer to financial problems which don't qualify as force majeure, but still have an impact on the contract and the ability of the party to perform. Sometimes you also have intervener provisions, because hardship clauses usually incentivize the parties to come together and amend the contract through negotiation. But if you're not, it doesn't really work that way if you don't want to negotiate. So maybe an intervener clause, which allows an arbitrator to come in and decide if hardship has occurred, is also a good way to forward. So now finally, because again, being mindful of the time, another thought that I had, looking at all the lists of force majeure events, is most of them, okay, in the abstract, they are in a way, you can predict that they will come about at some point. You don't know if and when in the context of the specific project, but there are ways to handle most of the risks. And parties are actually expected, at least from the Greek law perspective, to do their best in terms of prudence and due care to avoid the risk, especially if it's in their overall sphere of activity. It has to factor into their planning. And in that sense, because such extraordinary events come up more and more these days, perhaps tribunals will expect parties to take proactive measures, which could be even insurance or financial derivatives like futures, because some industries use them, to proactively handle the risk rather than invoke force majeure events after the fact.